Alright, Internet, I'm going to be taking this video from Wyalusing State Park because I happen to be here. It's my day off, and it is just an awesome, cool place. Alright, my camera is not the greatest in the world, but from here we can see, I don't know if that's the Mississippi River or the Wisconsin River. They're both in this area. We'll be at the Mississippi later. That one might be the Wisconsin River. We are at the Curtis Memorial Scientific Area, which is basically a big area that talks about plants. There's a motorcycle over there. I don't know if you can hear me over it. These here are plants that sting you. I know this because it happened yesterday. We go down this trail here on our little tour. We will be getting to Knob Shelter, but in the meantime I'll talk about things that have been sort of going on in my life. So, I've been working at my summer camp that I worked at last year. Keep in mind that last year I worked there as a woman, and now my driver's license has changed. I'd already come out to a great number of people because I expected to be on hormones by now, and I'm not. So I show up, I reapply, and I get hired back, and I don't know how many people know, but I know that some people know. And so I'm coming expecting to work as female again, and I'm thinking that's just fine. One more summer isn't going to kill me. And when I get there, my boss who knew me last year and my other boss who knew me last year start introducing me as male, which I never actually directly talked to them about this, but I'm like, well, awesome, we'll go with it. But the problem was, of course, now there's all these returning staff who don't know what they're supposed to be calling me. Anyway, I'm getting somewhere with better light. Anyway, so you can see the ceiling. So I'm at this camp that is terribly segregated as far as sex and gender go, because that's just a liability thing. We work with a population that requires a great deal of personal care, and so having men working with women is kind of a liability. Last year I worked with women a little bit. I mostly worked with men because both men and women can work with women, or with men rather. And then when they needed me to, I worked with women. This year that ain't gonna happen, which is fine with me because that is one of the most awkward things in my life right now. Let's see. Oh, the way that it actually really came out, and this is something, I didn't talk about this in a video because I was very depressed at the time, but I think I can talk about it now. So, my brother got married, and for his honeymoon, I babysat his new stepdaughter for a while. Her father doesn't really like that. And when his ex goes on, or my sister-in-law rather, goes on a long trip, he tends to accuse the babysitters of things. And he decided to say that my niece told him how sex changes work. And so now I'm being, and a bunch of other things, but that was the one that, at first they're like, wow, what exactly did Jackson say to this little girl that she would say anything that would lead to that, because my whole family knows that I'm transsexual, but they don't expect me to talk about this to little kids because I don't. So he's accusing me of sexual misconduct with a child, and I'm freaking out. So I'm going to my boss, and I'm like, I don't know if you know this, but I'm transsexual. There's somebody up there, but it's okay, they're far away. My sister-in-law's ex is accusing me of sexual misconduct with a minor, and he's using the fact that I'm trans in order to gain headway, and he's using that very deeply in this story that he's telling. And so I'm freaking out. I just freaked out. I wound up talking to a friend of mine for 45 minutes. It was one of the most terrifying things that has ever gone on in my life. Because I'm used to shitty things happening because I'm trans, but I'm not used to that sort of shitty thing happening, and just being accused of something like that. But, okay, so this story does have a happy ending. It turns out that, I don't know how he found out that I was trans, but he hasn't actually seen me, and he doesn't actually know me. He assumed that I was MF. And so his whole story, when he actually told his whole story of what he said that my niece said to him, it was based on the assumption that I am a trans woman. And so it involved things like, Aunt Jackie used to have a penis but had it made into a vagina, and all this other stuff that I would not have said. And so nobody believes him, and he actually was told not to have custody for a while. Alright, that was a little awkward, but not quite that awkward. I'm talking a little low. Some people walked up, but I've talked about worse in public. So, anyway, he's accusing me of doing a bunch of stuff based on the fact that I'm MF, which I'm not. He lost custody briefly. I don't know if he's going to get it back, but he's lied so far. Well, now, after me, he accused 3 other people, but he's so far accused 6 people of sexual misconduct with this little girl that didn't. So, I'm safe now, at least, and hopefully something will be done in the long term. Anyway, so I wind up telling my boss all this, and everything turns out fine in that regard, but, and they start treating me, my bosses do anyway, in the male role at my job. They put me in the men's dorm for training, which is something that they didn't do last year, and people were very confused about that who knew me, because they're like, why is Jackson here? Jackson's a girl. But they didn't really question it, and everything was going fine. So, remember how I said that there were some people who knew because I came out thinking that I was going to be on hormones? Well, camp rumors travel fast. And so, I almost fell there. You could have seen me die. So, lost my train of thought there too. Anyway, so, I'm working in male capacity, and half of my staff are referring to me as male and half are referring to me as female, but rumors travel fast, and so suddenly people are like, what exactly do we call Jackson? And I just started noticing people who worked there last year just starting to flip pronouns on me, from female pronouns to male pronouns. And I talked to people, and nobody talks to me about this. Nobody asks me questions. They ask everybody else questions because that's how rumors work. And this is a pretty trail. I've never been here before. Anyway, so they're talking to everybody else, and the rumor that goes around is this specifically. Are there people behind me? Yeah. The rumor that goes around is this specifically. Jackson had a sex change, which is pretty funny, because again, although my license changed, so technically it's kind of true. Nothing else has changed. I didn't have any surgeries. I didn't have hormones. I'm exactly the same, but apparently now I had a sex change. So I've been I've been allowed to be out, and that's something that I'm not used to. I'm not used to actually, especially in a summer camp setting, where we're working with a vulnerable population and we're working around people who talk and whose caregivers may not be so keen on the idea of a transsexual working with them. I'm not used to that, but I'm able to actually be out and talk to people about this sort of thing in some sort of capacity. Not that I want to. I do when people ask, which is almost never. And I do when it's clear that something needs to be said. I don't know if you can even hear this. The wind is starting to pick up. There's like a weird canyon going on over there. So, yeah, that has basically been my experience this year so far. It's actually been really good. The only major problem that I've had is that my campers from last year come back, and so many staff members last year were intent on insisting to them that I was female, that now that I'm not considered female at camp anymore, it's hard to undo that when people have been insisting that for so long. So basically it's been involving trying to convince them that they misheard what people were saying, which isn't going to work, and it's lying. So my tendency is to sort of not lie to them, but to explain that it's not true. And again, I work with developmentally disabled people, many of whom have things going on that you wouldn't find elsewhere, so that a lot of them don't understand that to most of the world, questioning somebody's gender to them is offensive. And it's not offensive to me, as it isn't for a lot of trans people because we're so used to it, but my staff is so horrified every time one of their campers asks. It's just, especially if they're like, "Are you sure?" And it doesn't bother me that much usually. It did yesterday. Yesterday it bothered me because I have other stuff going on right now. But the staff are so just uptight about that sort of thing, and it's weird because I'm used to being out in an area where people know that that's okay, not out among people who really don't know anything about trans people except that I am, and what they read, and what they see on Jerry Springer. But yeah, in other news, people are taking it very well, and people are treating me very well. They don't talk about it. They just act as though they don't know, as if they just understand me to be cis male. There's a little bit of overcompensation. A lot of people have been calling me sir. That it probably, yeah, but it's not overwhelming. And like always, and a lot of people don't understand that this happens, men tend to take at least F to M transsexuals better than women. And I don't know if it's because we're trying to join their little club, but men tend to take it very well, and the women get a little bit awkward. There's less awkwardness among the women here than I've seen elsewhere. But there is awkwardness among the women that there isn't among the men, again. But anyway, I'm gonna, it'll probably wind up being split into 2 videos, but I'm gonna go to the Native American mounds here, and I'll videotape that as well, and see how well this filmed, because this is a very cheap camera. It was like a $25 camcorder that I bought, for no reason other than, I wanted to take some videos. They didn't need to be high quality, but I'm going to do that, so I will see you next time.